What's a secret your family doesn't think you know, but you do? 1. My dad didn't go to another state for a job opportunity. He went on a coke binge. 2. That my cousin's Papillon didn't run away. I was with my uncle drinking on the porch and watched that poor pup get snatched off the ground by a massive hawk. A blink and it was gone. There was nothing we could do. We looked at each other after a solid few minutes of silence and he leans over. That fucking dog ran away. I nodded and that was the last we discussed it. 3. I absolutely adore my mother. She's a single mother who got a master's in education while taking care of 3 of us all the way up to working being a head of a department in the DOE. I have never seen her drink, shout, act immature, act out in any unbecoming way, etc. My whole life the one thing people commented on was how classy my mother is. Then 2 years ago when moving out, I ended up accidentally taking one of her boxes of papers from the attic thinking it was mine. It was full of court documents talking about an affair my mother had with a married colleague. Where she allegedly got so upset, he ended it that she started to stalk and harass him. He filed criminal charges on her as well as brought it to HR at her former job. The things he says my mother did in those documents, I can't imagine in 100 years. Yet I also couldn't imagine her having an affair with this guy at all. But she admits it in the paperwork. I know why she left her state job and we moved to DC. Basically there was some kind of deal made where she would leave. And it would go away. And the criminal case was also pretty much dropped, with the expectation and deal she would never contact him or bother him again. Like WTF. It's made me really realize that you don't know anyone really. 4. The part they know I know now, because I vocally expressed my knowledge, is that my dad cheated on my mom while she was pregnant with my younger brother. There are a couple parts they don't know I know. And one they don't even know themselves. 1. My dad actively took me to see his mistress, my now stepmom, while he was still with my mom. I was really young, but I remember being around her while my parents were still married. It didn't click for me until I got older, and the rest of the family was really mad to find out when I told them to. The thing I know that my dad and the rest of my family doesn't know themselves is that my paternal grandpa continued to give my mom $1,000 a month on top of what my dad paid in child support, because he was pissed at my dad for cheating. My mom actually told me a story about my dad trying to bail on a dinner where the divorce was going to be discussed, and my grandpa straight up said, "You're taking your fucking bitch ass to that dinner." My dad started favoring the kids he had with my stepmom, and my grandpa wasn't having it. Until the day he died, he would secretly give my brother and I extra for Christmas, birthdays, etc., because he knew the other 2 kids were getting treated better. My mom told me many times that my grandpa was the only member of my dad's side she truly still loved after the divorce, because of everything he did. 3. My grandparents paid for the house my dad and mom lived in, but my dad wanted to leave it when he got remarried. He didn't want the memories from it. Note that this house was 3 years old and really expensive. My dad threw a fit, because he wanted to build a new one-family farmland. This pissed the rest of my family off, because it was active farmland. This fit split the family in half, and it's still not fixed. My aunts and uncles still don't like my stepmom because of her role. 5. I was raped when I was 9 by the father of a friend. It was apparently so traumatizing I don't remember any of it, but apparently he was caught in the act by his wife. The reason I found out when I was 19, I was asked by his lawyer to speak at his probation hearing. 6. I have a half-sister. No one in my family has ever spoken about her, and after putting the pieces together I understand why. Being young, unwed and pregnant in the South in the early 60s could be fucking tragic. 7. My dad drunkenly called me and told me my younger brother is my half-brother. My mother doesn't know that I know. Long story short is that my mom cheated on my dad and didn't tell him till the child was 2. To which she then divorced him and left him for the guy who she cheated on him with. 8. That my grandfather cheated on my grandma with her best friend. Karma did him dirty. The best friend took his money when they divorced. That my father cheated on my mother when she was pregnant with me. My father is the son of the cheating grandpa BTW. Such a fucked up family. 9. That my uncle, deceased, was a registered sex offender. I was never introduced to him and my dad, his brother, would never speak about him. I was told he passed away, and the excuse of "you never met him" was the reason I couldn't go to his funeral, yet my parents have dragged me to people's funeral, that I never knew his funeral. They weren't even related to me. Got suspicious and searched my uncle's name up on one of those sex offender lists, and his name came up plus his face. Turns out he was caught touching a 3-year-old child at a park a few weeks before I was born. Scary. My parents were probably just protecting me. 10. My parents borrow a lot of money from me because supposedly they own it to an Italian businessman. But when I went to the bank, I saw they had paid the amount to an Austrian bank. Never asked them explanation. 11. I discovered that my mom has a secret husband. She divorced him. That no one knew about. I do the family history research for my family, and I discovered it by accident. I asked her about it discreetly, and she begged me not to tell anyone. Said not even my dad or brother knew. She died in 2003, and I still haven't, or won't, tell a soul. 12. My parents were married. My dad caught my mom red-handed cheating on him. My dad beat the shit of the dude who my mom was with. They got a divorce, and then later remarried. I know my parents do their fucking best to keep that a secret, but all 4 of their children know, however. It's really one of those things that's rarely talked about. 13. My brother got arrested and went to court for multiple drug charges. They went out of their way to hide it from me so that they could continue to act like I was the disappointment. They pretended they were going out to breakfast without me and rubbed it in my face to cover up his court dates. 14. My wife was sexually, physically and emotionally abused as a toddler by her mother's boyfriend at the time. Plus she was an absolute terrible mother in many other ways. My wife's mom has never talked to her about it, and has no idea that we know about it. We only know as my wife's grandmother spilled the beans. I don't even think her husband knows about it. It's all kept on the hush as my wife's grandmother doesn't want my wife's mom to find out she told her. My wife's mom has secretly been taken out of her will. She is leaving all her money in a house to our children. It's a really complicated family dynamics, and there's also a lot of complex trauma. It's easy to say from the outside to say just cut them off. CPTSD is a real cunt of a condition. Karma will come around. 15. My grandpa had an entire secret family. Even named his mistress's kids the same exact names as my mom and her brothers. No one knew until his funeral. They all think I was too young to remember. 8-ish, 9-ish. But I do it. Funny part is, I remember the secret kids and my mom plus her siblings all getting drunk together later that night too. 16. I'm 99% certain that my brother, born 3 years before divorce of my mom and dad, is actually my half-brother, and his dad is my stepdad. My mom was cheating on my dad with the dude who was to be my new dad. To cover this shit up, my mom made up a bunch of terrible lies about my dad. He killed my imaginary, it turns out, twin brother in utero. Tried to kill me. He kidnapped us. My dad always hated my brother. etc. That made me cut contact and plan his death for 35 long, angry, and wasted years. Until I discovered all the lies. Unpacking this shit with my stepbro, we're tight. And we came to the same conclusion about my brother's real father. The tragic part was, all these lies really fucked with me and my brother's heads. My bro committed suicide at 18 with no note. For years I tried to figure out why he would top himself, and now I'm all but certain it was due to the Jedi-level mindfuck from my mom's attempt to hide her infidelity. My anger was channeled into rage. His went to sadness. It's you, bro, you should be here. You'd have loved my kids. My little girl is just like you. 17. Hell, I am positively mortified hearing about all these stories in here. Mine is a bit light one. I am from a very conservative country, and arranged marriages were the norm here, until a generation ago. My uncle's marriage was the first love marriage in our family, and it happened after a lot of persuasions with the elders. Long before that, my uncle once took me to see his GF in the McDonald's. I was hardly 5, and I remembered the woman as a tall, amiable one, who gave me her burgers to eat. As we were going away, I told Uncle that I am gonna tell Mother how fine this lady was. We lived in a joint family. Uncle was terrified. He said there is no haste, and made me promise to never tell again. They married next year 21 years from then, and they are still married with a boy and a girl. TLDR, I met my future aunt. Before the rest of the family even knew she existed. 18. My grandfather lied about where he was stationed in World War II. He confided some in me in his last years, but a few slip-ups on his part and some papers I found made me start questioning. He says he was stationed in Las Vegas at a supply warehouse the entire war, has papers from the OESN, knows how to hotwire a single-engine plane. And when I made some remark about a field manual saying to fire your gun into an enemy if your bayonet is stuck in them, he mumbled, "Yeah, done that a few times." My mom and aunts all like to dodge the question. They may not even know it all themselves. But my older cousin and I both agree he probably stacked bodies across Europe.